Good evening. Welcome. Here is today's news wrap and update from the White House and beyond. U.S. climate envoy John Podesta traveled to Beijing, China this week to meet with his Chinese counterpart Liu Chen-mil to discuss how to cut global emission as well as how to improve climate-related financing for developing countries. This meeting come ahead of the UN United Nations COP29 conference that will take place in November. And as well as this is their second meeting, the two counterparts met in Washington, D.C. last May after Mr. Podesta, after the climate envoy took over from former climate envoy secretary, the former secretary, John Kerry. As the number one and number two biggest economic in the world, as well as the top polluters. It is the action and the discussion from this meeting we have significant effect, as I said, as the UN members prepare to meet in November for the COP29 summit. It also comes as a lot of developing countries in Africa as well as in Latin Americans are calling on the wealthier country, the US, and as well as China to improve their financing. We see a lot of the impact of climate crisis on the continent of Africa, from extreme flood to extreme drought, and this significantly affects food security across the continent as economic as well as their economic. So this meeting, as I said, we also build upon a series of events that have taken diplomatic visits that have taken place between the US and China. As we reported last week, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan traveled to Beijing to meet with his counterpart in Beijing to see way of how to continue to work together on mutual global issue. The President Biden and his administration have continued to work with the Chinese on as to improve the climate financing for developing country. And speaking of climate-related issue, the African Food System Forum is taking place in Kigali, Rwanda this week. It kicked off yesterday. Today is the second day, and several African leaders participated in the event today as well, including former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan, as well as the African Union, NEPAD, former African Union NEPAD CEO Ibrahim Mayaki spoke at the event today, calling on African leaders as well as the private sector to improve the food security on the continent by redesigning a lot of the food system, as well as incorporating as nations across the continent continue to work to find ways to incorporate the African Continental Free Trade Agreement into the international market. So the event today, the leaders used the opportunity to urge countries to improve the food system as part of the international trade, improve the quality of food, as well as the nutrition, biodiversity, and boost private sector investment in small medium enterprise, which of course we know a majority of that is for women-owned businesses. And speaking of investment, yesterday the US, as we reported, the US announced 40 million investments through its USAID program in the Feed the Future program. And that investment, as it was announced yesterday, ba- based on the contingent of congressional approval, the 40 million investment. And today, the UK government announced that it will provide $50 million investment for to improve food security on the continent. And it also announced the financing fund for Adeco venture. I announced the UK government said it will provide, it pledge, it will commit half of that fund, and the remaining fund it will match with with other investors. And it announced that the fund aim is to allow early stage agri businesses in Africa to grow its resilience to climate crisis. Another story that we are focusing on the continent is the U.S. government's partnership that continue to work with the Sudanese government. Yesterday, the Deputy Administrator for USAID and the State Department and the Special Envoy for Sudan held a virtual meeting with the Sudanese American Public Affairs Assistant and the Sudanese American Physician Assistant, uh, as well as the Sudanese diaspora in the U.S. To continue to find ways to end the ongoing war and the humanitarian crisis that is we see taking place in Sudan right now. This, of course, built upon the meeting that took place last month in Switzerland, with led by the U.S., the Egyptian government, as well as other partners from the continent and in the Middle East, to try, as I said, to try to find a way to end the humanitarian crisis and the ongoing war in Sudan that have had significant impact, that have displaced thousands of Sudanese across the continent, and we are seeing more of a famine in the country right now. So this meeting is part of the Biden-Harris administration ongoing effort to find an end to the war and the humanitarian crisis in the nation. Um, we reported yesterday that President Biden we traveled to Wisconsin today. That was an error, so we wanted to correct that. The president tomorrow will travel to Wisconsin as part of the Investing in American series, and he will talk to people on the ground, highlighting what his administration has done in the past 3+ years and how he plans to continue to deliver for the remainder of the month while he's in office, to continue to deliver for the American people. And we will report on that tomorrow. So the president and the vice president, Kamala Harris, will travel to New York and travel to Pennsylvania and to Pentagon next week to commemorate the September 11 event, the 9/11 event. The president and the vice president, since they've been in office, have always commemorate this, and so they will travel to those three locations where American building as well as American were attacked. Thousands of lives were lost on September 11 when the Twin Tower were attacked by plane. And so the president, we traveled to New York and the vice president to honor the memory, to pay tributes, and meet with family members to honor the memories of the people whose life were lost. The U.S. announced sanction through the Department of Treasury and the Department of State, announced sanctions today on 10 Russia individuals for election interference. And lastly, we didn't want to start the news with this today. There was a gun violence event in the U.S. That suspected 14-year-old boy was taken into custody today, after shooting and killing four individuals, two students and two teachers, and injured nine people. The president, in a statement today, just you know, in a statement issued by the White House, used the opportunity morning said and the First Lady mourned the lives that were lost, and used the opportunity to call on Congress to take action, that enough is enough and it's time to pass law. The president has taken several executive action, more than almost 2 dozen executive action on gun violence, including establishing the first gun violence um, office to address gun violence office with the vice president head. So it called on Congress to take action to ban assault weapon and to keep Americans safe. So this concludes our news wrap and updates. Tomorrow, we will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Kemi Oshikoya. Have a good evening. Thank you.